Well, hello everyone. Welcome back to Adrian's Digital Basement 2. It's a super mini mail call and let's get right into it. This package here, which you might be able to notice just on the edge here, says perishable. So I didn't want to let this one sit around too long because food going bad, those types of things. This comes from Michelle in Pearland, Texas. Hi to all my Texas viewers. Looks like we have a note here and what looks like some awesome Italian candy. Ooh, it looks like we're kind of packed full of goodies in here. I'll have to move this box onto the floor. Yeah. Actually, before we unpack the rest of the box, let's dig into this note here. Ciao, Adrian. Michelle here, or also known as Mike C here. Huge fan of yours. I finally went back to my home country and I was able to pick up the Olivetti I mentioned to you months and months ago. That's right. Mike and I have been chatting about this Olivetti computer, so Italian machine, of course. Olivetti might be an obscure name in the US. Maybe more mature people might remember their typewriters. I definitely do. But this company used to be one of the biggest computer manufacturers in the world between 1970s and the 90s. And from the mid-80s until the mid-90s, Olivetti was a major shareholder of Acorn. And their Programma 101 calculator was used in the Apollo program. The computer I'm shipping you is the Prodest PC1, an XT clone, Olivetti's third attempt to enter the home educational computer market, the first two being a rebranded BBC Master and a rebranded Thomson M06. It came out in late 1987 and it was a commercial failure. It was underpowered and it had to face the competition from the much more popular Amiga 500, which was about the same price in 1988, and Olivetti tried to play the semi-professional IBM-compatible card, but the Italian teenagers at the time only wanted a Commodore, me included. Despite all of that, they were still able to sell some units across Europe. Despite its flaws, I think the PC1 is still a beautiful compact machine with its wedge shape so popular in the late 80s. In the box, I enclose a CF card reader made by Francesco Sardelli. No idea what's on the card. A Logitech mouse, two t-shirts, an F1 diecast model because why not? And I do love Formula One, by the way. Don't really talk about that on the channel much. And some Italian candies I hope you will like. Special thanks to Simone Romanucci and Ciro Basile for their PC1 knowledge that they share on their websites. Links in the flash drive that comes with the mouse. All the best, Michelle. Thank you very much. I'm very excited. All right, so right on the top here, sorry, the heater just turned on. It'll turn off in a moment. Let's take a look at this Italian candy. There's some more here, just pulling it all out of the box. I have very little ability to pronounce anything properly in Italian, so I'm not gonna try. But these look really fascinating, don't they? Kind of a little, looks like a chewy, chocolatey looking candy. Obviously we have a football related theme going on. And then we have these candies here, made since 1926, I presume. Little kind of bonbon looking things. Some kind of original flavor, or caramel it looks like. Funny how, wait, are these actually packaged for the US? It's funny how it has net weight in ounces. No, I guess they're not hard-filled candies. They must sell these in the US though, and they probably, well, I don't know, they must stick a sticker on here because it doesn't have the right FDA stuff on there. But the weird thing is it does have ounces on there. I can't imagine this one does. It's kind of unusual. No, it doesn't. It just says 15 times 8 grams each. And then these Frutellas, they look really yummy as well. And these are some candies from 1956. Obviously, these are milk flavored, which sounds amazing. Obviously, the packaging gives that away as well. Galatine, I don't know. Again, my Italian is basically 0. 100 grams of candy here, and I'm sure these are made in Italy. And I think first thing I'm gonna have to try, I'm not gonna try all of this stuff here. I'm just gonna try these fruit flavored ones here. Oh, nice. Okay, so they're soft and gummy. Nice consistency. Well, that's really, really good. So yeah, it's obviously like a jelly type candy, but it really tastes very fruity and not super artificial fruit flavor either. So that's pretty awesome. Now, I've been to Italy before and actually had a wonderful vacation there over a couple weeks, but I didn't buy that much candy, weirdly enough. I was just, I think I was really interested in buying all the food, going to restaurants and eating all the food because there's so much good food to be had in Italy. These are one of the milk candies and it's kind of got a chalky consistency. I figured it would be more like a hard candy. Okay, these are freaking unbelievable. It tastes so milky. It's kind of like definitely made with a powdered milk or something like that. But it wasn't really hard, so you can bite into it really easily. And it's got this wonderful like sweet milk taste, which I happen to love milk. So and that's definitely something I've never had before. You know, these fruit gummies taste a lot like, you know, other types of gummy candies you can get from other countries and stuff. But this seems uniquely freaking awesome. So, wow. Okay. Enough of the candy right now, though. Thank you very much for sending them in. I love my treats from other countries. Let's take a look at the rest of the stuff in this box. All right. Looks like the t-shirts are actual Olivetti t-shirts. That is so cool. Now, I'm pretty sure Olivetti computers were sold in the US as their own brand, that is, you know, branded Olivetti. But of course, I'm sure most people watching, if you're into the PC world, you know that AT&T sold its line of computers as, well, they were made by Olivetti. So they were just rebranded Olivetti computers. And even though it said AT&T 6300, for instance, it absolutely 100% was just an Olivetti in every way. I really, really like that. And let's see the other one here. This one here seems to be actual Olivetti branded stuff, like licensed. And look, here's the receipt from Italy. This is so amazing. This is so cool. I just love this. Oh, look, it's the like evolution of their logo. What a shame what's happened to them, you know, that they were so huge in Italy. And then, you know, that's what happens to these tech companies, right? But I really kind of love this 20s logo. Ooh, so cool. And then obviously this is when their typewriter business was really happening. So they used this proportional font here. And then they went to the later ones, which of course we know from the computers and stuff. So thank you very much for saying those t-shirts. They're absolutely amazing. I haven't had to buy any t-shirts in the longest time now because I've been getting so many from viewers, which I have to say is frankly freaking awesome. And oh, I look in the camera here and I'm like spilling stuff or little packing material bits stuck to me here. It's now wintertime here in Portland. Well, it's autumn, but it's getting drier, so things definitely kind of stick to your clothes, especially little bits of packing material and stuff. All right, so here's some more stuff that was in the top of the box there. I'm quite sure, I mean, I'm nearly positive that, oh, that's awesome. That's the little CF reader. Cool. Looks like the card is right here in this side. So I don't think this computer was ever sold in the US. Therefore, you have to realize that all of this stuff here that was sent in was brought back from Italy. I mean, as was mentioned in the letter. Let's make sure none of the pins are bent here. I don't want to break the CF reader. No, there we go. So this looks, I assume, this side up, I think. I wonder if this computer uses normal ISA or something else. Let's grab another card. And I just want to compare to standard ISA. I mean, it looks similar. Obviously, yeah, I'm going to say it probably is. So that would mean that, well, maybe the slots. I think this is a small portable machine, so it probably has the slots maybe like that or something. So anyways, okay, we'll figure that out in a bit. So yeah, all this stuff was brought back from Italy to send to me, which is unfreaking believable and absolutely so amazing. The mouse is not the one that was sold by Olivetti for this computer. I couldn't find the super rare original gray and yellow Logi mouse made by Logitech. However, this PS2 mouse has the same exact form factor as the original for a more visual era appropriate setup. The connector must be rewired, though, to the proprietary Olivetti DB9. In the flash drive, I copied the original mouse driver and some links and rare pictures you might find interesting. Okay, we'll take a look at that. And there is the, there's the pinout. So it looks like it's regular quadrature encoding here, I assume. So 3 buttons and then the X, A, B, and the Y, A, B here. So that's the quadrature encoding. And very similar to the Amiga, Atari, and I guess the Amstrad Sinclair, so you just have to rewire it. And this does look like it's a normal PS2 connector, but I think this is actually not PS2. I think this is a bus mouse. And bus mice, which used a dedicated ISA card on a PC, that is, did use quadrature encoding. So it has, yeah, okay, that is a bus mouse connector. So if we look closely there, has far more pins than PS2. PS2 is actually a serial protocol that basically encodes the mouse signals over serial, just like a keyboard signal, basically, and would not be compatible. But obviously quadrature encoding, which is on here, and I think this is a pretty standard Logitech bus mouse signal, which we'll be able to figure out. Could you use a little retro bright, but this is very typical for those early Logitech mice. I think there's a screw under here, one or two screws there, those, and you can open this up, and I could do a little bit of retro brighting on it. To successfully rewire this, I think I could just look up the Logitech bus mouse pinout. But if that's not obvious, then all I have to do is open this up, figure out what 5 volts and ground is. Buttons 1 and 2 would be easy enough to hook up. We just have to figure out which pins on here, or go high or low, whatever, when you push those buttons. And then the quadrature encoding is also relatively easy to figure out. You just roll the thing up and down and figure out the Y direction and X left and right. And obviously if you have these reversed, then I think what would happen is the mouse pointer would move in the wrong direction. Anyways, cool. There's that flash drive that was mentioned. Here is the Formula One car, the Olivetti branded one. Oh, right. So it's a 1986 BT55 Formula One car with the Olivetti livery. The 80s and Formula One was unfreaking believable. If you don't know much about Formula One, I mean, it's still big today. It's huge today, and I'm a big fan. I watch every single race, all the sprint races and all that stuff and coverage and whatever. It's so interesting, and I wasn't watching Formula One back in the 80s, but to go back and watch stuff about Formula One back then, it was like wild because the power levels they were pushing on these cars with these turbocharged engines, it was extreme. And like the amount of safety gear they had, which was basically nothing, was wild. Driving these cars like at insane speeds in Monaco, for instance, which is a really tight road course, and shifting gears and passing, and oh, it's just absolutely wild. I don't know if I should even open this. I know it has this little like plastic case in here, so if we're displaying it, but this is cool. If people think I should open this just to display it on the shelf, you know, on its own, let me know. I'm not one who's into collectibles, like figurines or cars or whatever. It's not really my thing. And I know people get this stuff and they don't want to open it to preserve its heritage or whatever. And I have no idea if this is old or not. Anyways, that's pretty darn cool. Okay, what's left, of course, is the main attraction here, which is the computer. So let me unwrap this from the packing here, and we can take a look at it. This is very much like no IBM PC that I've ever seen sold. What a cool looking computer. So it has this really cool styling here for the pop-up floppy drive, which I guess you could have 2 of them. So we have a little bit of a cover here, unless that's an expansion slot or something like that. Actually, you know what? I should just put this on the bench and we can look at it with a top-down camera. So the Olivetti Prodest PC1 got some yellowing happening, I presume, on the F keys here. The regular keyboard, though, does not look yellowed. I'm assuming this is sort of the original color scheme. Must be PBT. And the keyboard looks mint. I don't see the shiny spot on the space bar here, so I don't think there's any kind of excessive wear on this machine. Must be a rubber dome keyboard, but actually feels pretty nice to type on. No enter key over here on the numeric keypad, but I guess when you have this enter key right there, it's not a big deal just to use that. No dedicated arrow keys, so use numlock and 8-2 and 4-6. They got rid of the plus and the minus key over here to make it more compact. Put them down there. Caps lock is over here, alt here, control over there. And then of course we have the stuff that's happening here, which is all a little bit different than what we're used to. In fact, I'm noticing here the parentheses are on 9 and 0 here normally, and the asterisk is over the 8, and that's over here. Break is right there. And you know, I don't see pause anywhere on here, so maybe they got rid of the pause function entirely. We obviously have an internal power supply that's 220, 240 volts. So if I can't convert that, maybe I'll swap that over to be like a Meanwell or something that would run on multi-voltage now, like a switch mode power supply. It's possible the one that's in here now is switch mode. Luckily, I have an adapter I can use with this to plug into my step-up transformer, which has a US-style plug on it, even though it's 240 volts. Looking at the back of the machine, we have a reset button that you can't push without a pen or something, headphone jack, printer port, serial port, another serial port for the mouse. Interesting is the connector for the mouse is the same as a 9-pin version of an RS-232, but I think it's the quadrature encoding, and it's not a normal serial mouse. So you could just plug a normal serial mouse with an adapter into this port, and that should work. But if you have any special Olivetti software that might need to talk to this mouse hardware, then that's not going to work. RGB monitor, I suppose. We have like a DIN here that it's got several connections that this RGB monitor, maybe analog RGB, probably for SCART, I guess. I don't know. And then digital TTL RGB, I presume. On this side of the machine, there's a little hole here. I don't know what's going on there. I can't tell what's actually happening there. There's like some wires in there or something. So, And then on this side of the machine, what's this? So this must be the way that the card plugs in. It's gotta be. Well, obviously that card's not gonna work. But there must have been like some kind of expansion chassis that plugged into here. Let's see if this goes into there. Yeah, it does. So at least here it says this side up, I think. So we don't know. I'll have to look that up, I guess. Wonder if that's just normal ISA. Obviously it has attachment points here for some kind of expansion module that was external, like maybe a case or something that went around it to kind of give this thing a little side pod action. And lastly, looking at the bottom here, made in Italy, 220 volts, 35 watts, 50 hertz, and the serial number is 61001. And it is pretty amusing to think they were marketing this to compete with the Amiga 500. And while you could obviously run Lotus 123 and WordPerfect on this thing, from a games perspective, I don't even know. We'll have to figure out what kind of video output this thing is, but it's not going to be super exciting compared to the Amiga, that's for sure. All right, so in this video, in the mail call video that is, I want to power this thing up just to kind of see what the machine is doing, if it's kind of working or if we need to do some repairs. So to facilitate that, I have an adapter for the power plug. This just goes from this European style plug to a US plug. And this is actually a proper adapter with actual ground pins and stuff on it, even though this plug here doesn't appear to be a grounded type. So we plug that in and now we have a US plug. Of course, that's running 120 volts. But what I have here is a step-up transformer. And what this was originally was actually a step-down transformer. So originally, the plug on here was actually like I think it was a UK plug. And it had a US plug on the front. And it would output 120 volts when plugged in 240 volts. So I took this thing apart, which was very difficult because the thing was all kind of glued together. It had screws and it had glue. And I basically swapped the transformer around. So it turned this into a step-up transformer, but a nice beefy one with a convenient carry handle. And I just swapped out the power cord. So we have a US style power cord. It still has a fuse here. And it just has a normal US plug on it. So I did that because most of the step-ups have, say, a Euro plug on them. But not everything I want to plug into this thing actually has a European plug. Stuff I get from China, like those China TV sets, have a standard US style blade plug. So it's kind of cool because I can just pop this in like so, and now the computer is ready to go once, of course, I have this plugged in. Now, because this was a step-down transformer here in the US, I don't even know how it got here, it was basically free because you can't really use such a thing here since this was designed to be used in England. So this must have been someone who like moved here from the UK or another country that had the same plug, and they brought this thing with them and then were like, oh, I can't use this. So yeah, now we input 120 volts, we get out 240 at 300 watts, turn that on, and there we go. Now we have 240 volts. So I'm realizing that I did not see a power switch on here. And that has me wondering if this on the side was a power switch that broke and has been rewired. And now that has me thinking, has this thing already been modified to run on 120 volts? I don't know. I have a sneaky suspicion something might have been done. Maybe the first thing to do is check out the flash drive, because perhaps there's more information on the flash drive about what's been done to this machine. All right, so here's the flash drive. Okay, flash drive. Blueprint. We just can kind of see what actually was made, and it's like it's blue, like it acts as if it's a blueprint. This is wild. Okay, so let's see here. We have DRAMs, 4416. That's got to be for the video memory here. These two chips, video controller right there. Interesting. It's a large square chip. Delay line. We got a PAL. BIOS ROM, 8255. So far, so good. There's that edge connector, which might be same pinout as ISA. A couple more PALs. Some latches here. Oh, is this the CPU here? V40? What is a V40? I know like a V20, of course, replaces an 8088, and a V30 replaces the 8086. What's a V40 though? Okay, here's the family of chips. V40, an embedded version of the V20 with integrated 8251, 8253, 8255, which is funny because there was one on the motherboard as well. Used on the Olivetti PC1, the Digisystems Jetta XD, and the Sharp PC 4500, and the Zenith Easy PC. Okay, so hardly used except for on like this machine and these other ones. Well, it did result in a machine with a relatively low chip count. These must be the connectors for the floppy drives. I'm trying to think of, yeah, orientation-wise, or maybe the keyboard. Oh, you know what, this one here, this might be the floppy drive connector. So this is probably for the keyboard. These two ribbon cables, like row and column, for the keyboard. 16 megahertz crystal, 37C65, I don't know what that is off the top of my head. There's a switch. There's a switch, and sure enough, it does stick through the case here. Don't know what that does. COM. Change the COM port, maybe? So here are the three PALs. One is registered, and the other two are just logic. Logic ones mean you can more easily reverse it. You have to make a little custom board to read it like an EPROM. You just put all the values possible into the inputs, and then read all the output values, and you could make a replacement relatively easily. The registered versions are a bit more difficult because they have clock input and state tables and more functionality inside of them than just sort of ins and outs. Looks like the DRAM is 256 kilobit times 4 bits. So 2 chips is 256, and I saw over here we have 4. So this thing has 512K of memory. And then we have 4416, so that's a total of 16 kilobytes of memory with 2 chips, 4 bits wide each, so typical for a video controller, CGA kind of thing. And, oh, and then the 37C65, that's the floppy drive controller. I didn't realize that. Okay, well, this didn't have anything about the power supply that's in this. I might have to open this thing up. We have the mouse stuff, so that's the pinout for the mouse. And there's the original mouse, which absolutely was the same exact case, but it had that 9-pin connector. Well, what is this garbage? Oh, Windows, ugh. Oh, and we have here a whole bunch of links. So let's check out the technical specifications. There it is. Ooh, yeah, there's that expansion interface, the PC1 system unit plus the 1-slot expansion blocks. Probably it would be possible to use something like an ISA riser card, ooh, which I happen to have right here. Although this one here is 16 bits, but if I had an 8-bit version of this, then you could plug this into the side of the computer and then potentially plug multiple cards in. Interesting is this photo here has the F keys kind of yellowed as well, exactly like this machine. Is that how they were when they were new? 512K of RAM, exactly like I thought. V40, which is an 8188 compatible, 1 or 2 floppy drives, XT style keyboard, integrated CGA video, allegedly can output to a TV or monitor. Well, we saw that DIN connector, so that does make sense. Looks like there's a pin out here for the DIN. Let's see what that says. Does have composite video, so maybe monochrome or something like that. And then we also have a sync signal, composite sync that is. Doesn't really mention the other video connector on here, which makes me assume it's just a standard CGA connector. Oh yeah, there it is, same pin out as CGA right there. Look, here it is. Okay, the expansion slot, according to the manual, the pin out of the slot is ISA-ish, but with the following lines missing. -5 and -12, and then it doesn't have the DMA request for DMA channel 2 and the DMA acknowledge, or IRQ 7 and 6. Oh, well, I mean, the fact those are missing won't affect most things. So theoretically, even an XT IDE card would just work plugged into the side of this. There's another connector on the underside, and it's supposed to have a plastic cover, but it's missing on my PC1. Well, it's on this one because I didn't see a hole there. 34-way socket, which allows external floppy drive to be connected. Besides the connector is a switch. Moving the switch to the left disables the second floppy drive so the external drive can be used instead. There's also a slider on the underside, which is a volume control for the internal speaker. And although the video hardware behaves like CGA, I have not been able to get my PC1 to produce a stable picture on a CGA monitor. My PC1 may be defective or need an EGA monitor. Okay, well, we can look into that. The BIOS appears to be a cut-down version from the Olivetti M24, aka the AT&T 6300. It says here that the V40 processor, like the 8188 that it emulates, it contains a DMA controller that's not compatible with the 8237 controller used on the IBM PC. A Usenet posting explains the NMI handler could be used to simulate a PC DMA controller using an onboard controller, and that appears to be what the PC1 BIOS does. The non-maskable interrupt vector for this address is FC008 rather than 008. I don't know what, blah, 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 you know, stuff like that. Very interesting. So it means that if things try to talk directly to the DMA controller and they don't go through probably the BIOS calls, then theoretically that could fail, although I'm not 100% sure, because maybe non-maskable interrupt allows it to just work. It says the display controller emits most of the CRTC registers. That's the chip that runs the CGA card MDA as well. The BIOS doesn't even bother to program the first 10 registers. You can switch between video modes just by tweaking bits in the control register. Judging by the BIOS ROM, there seems to be additional video controller of some kind at another address. And it says here it's mostly CGA modes, but then there's a mode 64 that doesn't appear to do anything on here, and that's a vestige of the M24, which of course is 640 by 400. Looks like this machine is a turbo machine running at 8 megahertz. You can slow it down to 4.77 megahertz though. Let's check out this commercial here for the computer. Let's see what this is all about. TV rewinds.
Non tutti I computer per casa hanno 512 kilobytes di potenza.
512K, yeah.
Solo alcuni sono compatti.
Compatible.
Sono IBM compatibili.
Show the computer. I want to see if it has yellow keys.
Per voi che volete tutto, c'è Olivetti Prodest PC1
There it is.
IBM compatibile.
Oh.
Con una fantastica dotazione di programmi.
Oh, they are yellow. Okay. So that's not yellowing. That's exactly how it's supposed to be. How freaking awesome.
E drive incorporato.
Yeah, there it is.
Olivetti
Yeah,
Prodest.
yeah, you can get that kind of graphics. Yeah, that's not misleading.
Tutto quello che mancava ai computer.
You're like, oh, I want to get my my PC1 instead of the Amiga 500, and obviously they're gonna show that graphics there, and you get this thing home and it's like text mode with CGA. Like, what a letdown. All right, well, you know what? Before we do anything with this, I guess I need to open it. I don't feel confident plugging this in plugged into the step-up transformer, not with the fact that that power switch seems to be missing. This must be that 34-pin connector that was mentioned in that article. And it's funny, without that second floppy drive, the thing kind of flops around a little bit. Looks like we got some screws, but we have some clips at the front, which is always a little worrisome. All right, disconnect the floppy drive there so you can kind of see what's going on. So, it's a little unusual. What this thing is all about here, huh? So I don't quite get this, because obviously the floppy drive has this metal mounting plate here, and it feels like this thing here could like hold something. I don't know. Cable's tucked in there, and there is a connector in here for that second drive, and you can see here that the cord for the floppy drive is really long. Okay, so we do have very fragile ribbon cables here for the keyboard. I'll just leave those alone for now. Motherboard is looking good here. Let's zoom in a little bit on this. Don't know how many folks watching have ever seen the inside of a PC1 before. Certainly I have not. So we have our NEC processor here, video controller right there, DRAM is here, there's some video memory over there. This was like another parallel I/O controller, the system BIOS, these are PALs, there's another PAL on here somewhere, I assume. There it is right here, delay line, crystals. The motherboard goes a little bit underneath there, and that is it. But what I know for sure, and this is what I really wanted to see, is that the power supply here has this large transformer, and then it has this little, basically a little switch mode power supply that probably takes the low voltage AC that comes out of this and is able to generate some negative voltage rails. Although we saw that on the ISA connector, it said that it didn't have the minus rails, at least on the ISA connector. And if they're not on the ISA connector, they may not be used anywhere on here at all. And if I lift the keyboard up, just move it slightly here, you can see here where the power supply is connected to the motherboard here, and there are 4 wires. So that does imply that we got like 5 volts, 12 volts ground, and I'm assuming one of the negative voltages, like maybe a minus 12 volts for the RS-232 port. Also, I'm noticing over here, near the DIN, this screams TTL to analog conversion. So it's like a little bit of a ladder DAC that's turning those TTL video signals into something that the SCART can use. So these 3 transistors right here. Anyhow, I think what this really tells me here for the power supply situation is that this thing has not been modified in any way, and this is sketchy, very sketchy. This obviously had, I would have to guess that this had a power switch that broke at some point, and someone just bypassed it, and the switch would have been right here. It's too bad they didn't just leave the switch. If the switch were there, that would have been great. And this is like electrical tape together. Oh dear, I don't know. It's so sketchy. Anyhow, I think I've sort of jumped around a little bit. This is definitely a 220 volt transformer. So 240 volt, which I'm about to give it, not exactly ideal. It's gonna run hot a little bit here, so it's not great. I think Italy typically, or at least back then, was running really around 220 volts, not the 240, 250 that's more common in a lot of countries like Australia and the UK now. And I think my voltage here is 122 in the house and doubles to 244, so it's definitely going to be a bit high. So this little power supply has to work harder to bring whatever this comes out of this, like say 17 volts AC, down to the voltages that are necessary to run the computer. So probably what this thing needs is to have this all removed and a little Meanwell power supply put in place, and figure out somehow to get a new power switch mounted in here, and to obviously replace this power cord. And yeah, looking at this, actually, this power cord should have gone through this strain relief over here, and it's just loose. And so this was someone's attempt to fix this computer. But anyways, it's good enough for us to test. And that's all that really matters right now for this mail call video. All right, so the lid is just loosely affixed. I'm gonna plug this in here. Now there's no power switch on here, so this will just turn on as soon as I turn on the power here, and here we go, 3, 2, 1. Okay, that's not good. There was some scratchy noises coming out of the PC speaker, and I didn't see the LEDs on here. So I'm gonna say that I think the whole power supply is just gonna need to be replaced in this thing, and it's not trustworthy in its current state. I hope I didn't just damage the computer beyond belief by turning this thing on. Yeah. At least I double checked that that transformer was 220 volt transformer, but the lights didn't come on, and out of the speaker I heard a little bit of like scratchy noise. So yeah, this thing is absolutely a candidate for a new power supply to go in here. And yeah, I just unplugged here. So to take this stuff all out and just put something new in there. And hopefully this thing will just then come to life at that point. So on that, I think that means that that's going to be it for the Olivetti PC1 on this Super Mini Mail Call video. I will absolutely be revisiting this computer on a main channel video where we get that power supply swapped out of here and replaced with some kind of switching power supply, something much more modern. And then hopefully we can see this computer come to life. We can try to get this mouse working. We can figure out how to see which way to plug this expansion card in. And then hopefully get this thing booting, and we can try to play some, well, CGA games and really try to laugh at the horrible comparison of a 1988 Olivetti PC1 to an Amiga 500, which if, it was me and I was trying to play games, I know which one I would rather have. So Michelle, huge thanks for grabbing this thing for me in Italy and bringing it back to the US and shipping it to me along with all that awesome candy and these t-shirts and the Formula One car, and getting this thing all prepped together for me. That was really awesome of you. And I can't wait to see this computer fired up and working. Okay, we're not done with Super Mini Mail Call. I have another package here. This one comes from Kazan in North York, Ontario. So hi to all my Canadian viewers. Looks like we have a little bit of information giving away what this is here for the customs declaration. I will not spoil that yet, but this seems to be some nifty stuff. It looks like we have another computer in here. And it looks like, let's just get this on the bench here. It looks like in this thing here, looks like a memory card plus some chips. And on the letter here, it looks like this came from Peter. Not what I said when I opened the package. It says, "Hi Adrian, in my previous donation to your channel, I already mentioned I was thinking about getting you an MSX2 computer. Since then, I've reached out to a few folks and they've gotten an assortment of MSX computers from Japan and started fixing them up for people to enjoy them. Jaron has developed a multi-cartridge for the MSX system based on the Pi Pico. Very cool hardware in my humble opinion. So first I wanted to send you a machine that was already completely working, but then I thought your basement is better served with a machine that requires some work. So inside this box, you'll find an MSX2 computer that's mostly working, but in need of a little TLC. As the failures this machine presents are quite common, we've included the parts to fix them as well as some other parts for modifications. The major failure in this machine are the capacitors on the so-called HIC1 daughter card. This board was supplied by Mitsumi, and the caps are known to leak, could potentially damage the traces. So I'll include the required caps for you to replace them. The caps on the main board are known to be good quality and don't need preventative replacement. The second common failure is the disk drive. It's belt driven and the caps do go bad here. Rather than fixing up the drive, we thought you'd appreciate a GoTech to take its place. The GoTech has an adapter board and a replacement OLED screen. All right, that's awesome. The adapter is needed. The drive uses a 26-pin connector. Oh, that's unusual. With the adapter, you can use the original ribbon cable and the board will plug directly into the GoTech and provide you with the breakout power. We've also included the MSX Pico cartridge generously donated by Jaron, who designed it and sells them. Latest firmware and source code can be found here. Download.filehunter.com/MSX Pico. Interesting, there's a space there. That's kind of unusual. Is that just a typo, I wonder? To use games on the MSX Pico, you have two major streams. I won't read all this stuff here because I'll have to figure this out later. ROM files. We can also do disc games. Once you get next door, similar to Mastas. Okay, I don't really know any of this stuff. I really know very little about MSX machines. Of course, MSX had a lot of tools and applications, but as this letter is already getting quite long, I won't get into those. Big community here, msx.org. I hope you'll enjoy this package, both working on the FS-A1F, that must be the computer, and playing some of these games. P.S. Once again, thanks for your videos. Sharam will be helping out with the FS-A1F computer, and Jaron for donating the MSX Pico. That's so cool. Thank you so much for that. That is super sweet. So let's see here. It looks like we have a little power supply box here. And in here is going to be the MSX computer that needs a little bit of TLC. Now, as was mentioned in the letter, I do have one MSX computer. It's actually the Arabic MSX computer. It does run PAL, and it's an MSX1 machine. I forgot the name of it off the top of my head right now. But yeah, I have that machine. It's just over there. It's pretty darn nifty, but I actually have no way to really play any software for that thing because I don't have the floppy drive. And of course, I don't have this MSX multicart thing that was included with this machine. Now the MSX2 has much improved graphics over the MSX1 type computers, which had graphics that were essentially the same as the TI-99. Just the main difference was the CPU was a Z80 versus the TMS-99 whatever that is on the TI. But yeah, same graphics chip, very similar sound and stuff like that. Not that there weren't good games on it, but you know, you kind of got the really sad color palette and stuff like that. But this machine here, the Panasonic AF1, it's so cool. This is obviously a Japanese machine, so it's going to run on NTSC mode. Keyboard is pretty nasty feeling, and I don't think it's like nothing wrong with this computer. It's just wasn't a good keyboard. I mean, from the get-go. But we have a floppy drive here with a belt that goes bad, and it's that weird 26-pin connector. So I presume we have the GoTech in there. It looks like it's right there. And then on the back of the machine, we have the expansion slot here. That will obviously be for the multi-cart that's going to go in here. Printer, I guess. RGB and something else. Oddly enough, those are exactly the same DIN connector, probably composite video and mono audio. And then this is a Japanese tuner in here, so which channel output, and then we have RF output. And then this thing does have an internal power supply. It looks like, looking at the bottom of the computer, it actually has room for batteries, and there are battery contacts in there. Maybe there's a real-time clock. When we open this machine up, we are going to find that it has a ton of surface mount chips. It's going to look kind of like this. These types of chips are going to be all over the inside of this, I would imagine, because there was a whole lot of vertical integration happening when these were being made. And MSX was a standard, of course, that anyone could make computers for, so lots of companies did, Sony and Panasonic and everyone else. I bet you there's another cartridge connector in here. I want to be gentle with this. There we go. Yep. So I think the idea was you could use two cartridges at once, and I don't know 100% the reason for that, but maybe one would be for, I don't know, languages or something like that. Here's my other MSX machine. So the AX230. And this one, as I mentioned, this has the one cartridge slot, but the Japanese variant of this, which of course did run in NTSC, had two cartridge slots here for whatever reason. And there are no slots in the back here on this one. Keyboard on this one feels a little bit better actually than the Panasonic one. Look at the back of this, we got RF, same video connectors, has the printer ports, that's obviously for the printer, little Centronics kind of thing, and RGB, similar to what this one has. Now this one here, by the way, it was OEM'd by one of the Japanese companies, and I forgot which one it is at this point. Obviously it was localized for the Middle Eastern market here, so it's got Arabic writing on here. And actually I chatted with some people after I had a video on this, and I had a bunch of people, including some people here locally in the US who grew up in the Middle East, and told me how big of an influence this machine, this exact machine was for them. that they were able to kind of get into computers by the widespread availability of this particular computer. And the company that made this, which I can't remember how to pronounce it right now, but they also sold other computers and other electronics and stuff like that. But this particular machine made it into a lot of schools and just influenced a lot of people's lives in the Middle East, and for, you know, in a really positive ways, as so many computers do all over the world, especially back in the 80s when this thing was out. I think it was like later 80s that this machine was contemporary. So the MSX2, like this Panasonic one here, just really upped the ante and improved the capabilities of this machine and made it, well, you know, it was a good basic learning computer, but then of course people were playing games and stuff on it, and that's exactly what was going on here. So let's see what we got here. So this is obviously, there's our GoTech. That's the MSX Pico. Really nice 3D printed case. Interesting, it's got this hole here. Is that for putting like a lanyard on there or something? Got an SD card slot there. Included SD card. Thank you very much, guys. That was really sweet of you. We have what obviously is an LED that shines through right there, and this would plug into the computer like so. And this obviously has a Raspberry Pi Pico inside and does have a couple screws holding it together. So let's just quickly take a look at what's inside of this. All we presume we're going to see is just a Pi Pico with an RP2040, probably attached to a little carrier board with maybe some multiplexers or level shifters, stuff like that. And that makes this really just a software-defined cartridge, which is why Raspberry Pi Picos are so freaking amazing. And I remember before this project existed, I was looking for a multi-cart for that other MSX, and they were very expensive. And I was like, I wasn't quite ready to spend that kind of money. All right, so this thing must emulate sound, because this is one of those DAC boards that was used on the original Pico Gus. And so this maybe emulates some additional sound hardware, which I know some cartridges had in it. And then they came out that, or output via the DAC here. Nice ENG coding, so high quality PCB here. And this is this Raspberry Pi Pico has USB Type-C. So I don't know if that's one of the OEM boards. I know there's like a bunch of newer ones that you can get from AliExpress. Look, it has an RGB LED on it as well. And that I think is used by the case, because look, it's got that little clear thing right there. So that colorful LED shines through. So this is a really cool little piece of hardware here, and there's the date, and it's version 1.1. And yep, we got like level shifters and our multiplexers there, voltage regulation, couple jumpers and things like that there, and on the back just some additional pins. I guess that's just the way that this was attached. And I really like how this all just fits into this really nice 3D printed case as well. Very cool and very slick design. Also included with the GoTech, this is the little adapter board. Let's see, what are these ICs here? So we have, what, I guess a new replacement ROM for this machine, because that's the model number there, and we have an additional 32K of RAM. What kind of RAM chips are these? That two of them is 32K. And then this here is that really slick adapter for using PC floppy drives with this machine, because it works with the GoTech, but you could also just use it with any regular floppy drive as well. Plugs into the original ribbon cable and then has the breakout for the power. So that is a really slick little piece of hardware as well. The A1F floppy drive adapter. So this must be kind of specific to this Panasonic machine. All right, and we have this little bad boy here. All right, okay, so this goes from standard US style voltage down to, well, much closer to the Japanese voltage. I'm assuming this is a little transformer here. So my 122 volts in my house will end up probably like 100-ish volts. And yeah, Japan typically runs at 50 or 60 hertz, depending where you are, 100 volts AC. So it's a bit lower. And what can happen is if you have a not the most intelligent power supply and you try to plug it into normal 120 volts, it can work, but you're really pushing it and you're overdriving it. You're basically giving it 20% higher voltage than it was designed for. And depending on the design of the power supply, it may or may not like that. So I think the first thing we need to do is we know we need to do some work on this machine. Now, I thought it said here in the letter that there were some capacitors that were included. It says we've included some parts to fix the failures, as well as some parts for modification. Did I miss the caps? I don't think I did. I'm pretty sure I opened up everything that I got here. Yep, just double checking the packing material. Maybe they're inside the machine. Let's not jump to any conclusions until we get the screws off of this thing. So let's flip this thing over here. Get these screws out here. All right, so these screws here hold the floppy drive in, so I don't think those are necessary for taking this apart. Well, and it looks like, well, that's a Phillips screw. It looked like this one here was like a Nintendo screw or something weird like that. Yeah, these are just standard kind of into the plastic screws. So let's see. Is this actually open now? No, it's not. I'm pretty sure I gotta take these out, and I don't know if I have the right thing to do that with. If this bit is gonna fit down in there. Ah, it does. Hopefully. Oh, that doesn't though. So it's like the bit's right there. I think that's the right bit, but but this that does not fit there. Oh dear. Oh, I'm just looking at the bottom here, by the way. There it is. Panasonic model FS-A1F, 100 volts, 50-60 hertz, 14 watts. Okay, we're on MSX.org, and I'm just checking out the computer here, and I thought maybe it has a little bit of info about opening it. Right, okay, here we are on the right page. So this has the power supply built in. It's an MSX2. It's basically an F5A1 Mark II with a built-in floppy drive. Is this made by Panasonic as well? Yes, it is. All right. So built-in floppy drive mounted to the front of the case. It is available in black, is aimed at the Japanese market, sold for 54,000 yen, has 64K in slots 3, 0, 128K of VRAM. The video is provided by the V9938. This is like where the upgrade comes from. Oh, well, that doesn't link to anything. So I think this chip has like way more colors to pick from, potentially has like higher resolutions and yeah, more video memory, 128K of video RAM. That's significant for you know, an 8-bit home computer in 1987. I mean, think about that for a second. Like just video memory has 128K, more than the system RAM. It has PSG audio as well, so programmable like square wave type audio and maybe some other tones as well. Yamaha chipset, 720K floppy drive, ROM dumps. The ROMs are dumped and emulated. Comes with a bunch of software here, clock calendar and stuff like that. That's what Peter said in his letter. There's that drive belt on a 3.5-inch disk drive. Not super common. Most of these were direct drives. So that's a little bit of a difference. It must be just because it's an older drive. There's the computer here, and there are the caps. Well, they don't seem like they're included unless they're just inside the machine, like maybe they're just loose inside of here. Let me just double check one more time, really quick. No, unfortunately does not look like it was included in here, but yeah, we know that those leaky caps can damage traces on that little board. So there's absolutely going to need to have a replacement done of those caps. And actually the really bad thing is I've kind of run out of those SMD caps. I've been recapping a bunch of stuff lately, and I was using ceramics and other stuff, and my whole stock is drained. So I need to really put a big order in for DigiKey, and I haven't done that yet. So I don't even have this stuff in stock. Anyhow, Z80 CPU, and we have these Yamaha chips here, which are those custom chips that give this thing all the crazy graphics and sound. We have some RAM up here, RAM down here, and perhaps these two chips right here go into these two sockets. Maybe they're empty. Ribbon cable for the keyboard, that's kind of lame. Disk drive plugs in right here, obviously. And it looks like the built-in software is pretty cool. Some neat looking graphics, and I guess there's mouse support, obviously. I kind of love the user interface, like style is really quite cool. So this is the disk manager here. This model can be easily upgraded to 128K of RAM by adding additional chips. Okay, so these are probably 4464 chips here, 64 kilobit times 4. So 2 of them is an extra 64K of RAM, which I guess doubles it from 64 on the motherboard up to 128. And it looks like you have to add a couple ceramic capacitors when you do that. Probably just bypass caps that just aren't installed on the board. MSX machines do a bunch of bank switching so they can go beyond that 64K memory layout. And that's what this whole slot stuff is here. So slot 0, 1, 2, 3, and then there's sub banks. So slot 3 has 1, 0, 1, 2, and 3 as well. So that's like the entire memory space. And you know, the cartridges occupy those slots 1 and 2. Main ROM is down here in slot 0. Memory's up in slot 3, and then you can like bank switch it out. And I don't know, it all follows a standard, the way the bank switching works. And I think it's standard enough that software pretty much can work on one machine to another. Looks like we have a wiki article on restoring one of these. Probably need to look at that because it might talk about how to open it. That's what I need to do, right? Upgrading your FS-A1F to 512K. Internal 2/4 meg RAM expansion board. Oh, this is the same person, RBSC, that made the little floppy drive adapter here. I saw that printed on there. Internal 4 meg upgrade. Internal 512K upgrade. MSX2 Plus upgrade. Repairing the H1C board. That's the one that's the problem. Adding S-video output. Very cool. Remove all the screws from the body. This includes external and internal screws. Separate all the parts. The computer cover and computer body, computer support, and battery cover, cartridge. Well, thanks for telling me what kind of screws, because I can't make heads or tails of this. Maybe what I'm doing wrong is I did leave some other screws installed in here, and maybe I just need to take those all out, like the floppy drive screws, and then the computer case will come apart, and those two standoffs, or what I think are the Nintendo screws, aren't actually those. So here's a document about these horrible caps. And there they are, those little jerks leaking all over that board. That looks like quite the mess there. I don't know what they're saying in Japanese here, but maybe just use the old twist method to get them off. Oddly enough, they just use normal through-hole type caps to replace the leaky ones. And then here's that S-video mod that it's talking about. Let's just get a little closer on this. Looks like, yeah, you just get it off the video encoder. But looking down here, they took out the RF modulator and then replaced it with a little custom kit. Not the best pictures in the world, but that gives you a little S-video jack. Very cool, and I assume the switch is to go between composite and S-video. Well, let me try to get this computer open. So I'm gonna take out all the rest of these screws that I just sort of assumed we didn't need to take out. And I think I'm gonna leave the modding and the exploration of this computer to a main channel video. And that'll give people the opportunity to, put comments down below on this video. Let me know about awesome things I need to try and do. And maybe people can tell me a little bit about those mods that are on that Japanese page there to see which are the ones that are absolutely worth doing and which ones I can probably skip. And looks like, we have the ROM upgrade we can do here. We can do the RAM upgrade. That's pretty simple stuff. And then I will need to get some caps to fix those leaky electrolytics on that small little board. And hopefully with these screws out, is there a screw in there? Nope. Hopefully with everything out, now this comes apart. The lid feels a little looser than it was. Let's just check to see there's no screws in here. Nope. Okay, there we go. We're making progress. Ah, there we go. Okay. So obviously those screws so obviously what I thought were screws were definitely not. A few clips on the top there, but I just wiggled the lid and those came off pretty easily. Oh, this is attached here. What is that? Oh, power LED. Okay. So I'll just get this disconnected here. Easy peasy. Okay, well, right off the bat, see here that this board's already been recapped. So not something I need to do. Awesome. And it certainly looks like a bit of a mess there. Look at that. So I guess we'll have to see if this is actually working or not, because that doesn't look great at all. So here's 128K of RAM right here. And let's get this keyboard off. There's a screw right here. And let's see what we have for RAM on the main board. I'm assuming it's not upgraded. I know there's a ribbon cable, so I said to be careful here with this. So this flips over to the side. Ah, there we go. There's the additional RAM we can install right there. So put 2 sockets in, although I have to be careful. I guess it'll be fine. I'm just trying to worry about clearance, but thinking about how high the disk drive is here, there'll be no issues. And then the new ROM is going to require a socket there as well. And yep, there are those custom chips. And just like I mentioned, we'd have these surface mount chips here. And one of the possibilities obviously is potentially replacing this little power supply board with something else that would run natively on US power, or potentially putting like a little Pico ATX thing in here and then having a USB-C jack right here. So that'd be kind of fun. You could do battery power instead of having to do AC power. So, okay, well, now that I know that this thing probably needs some repair here, I don't even know what this little board does. Let's just see if this thing actually works. Maybe it just works. I'm assuming it doesn't, hence the letter. So first I want to check out this kind of sketchy power supply thing here. So checking the voltage output, 106.5. So definitely better than what we'd be getting here if I just plug this computer straight into the wall. And this machine has a red button right here. I didn't mention there's 2 joystick ports right here. Red button, which I think is the pause button that it's talking about. And then we have the power switch right here. So that's the kind that goes bad in monitors. So we'll leave that in the out position, which should be off. So we're gonna be using the RetroTink here. Let's just check the input. It is already set to composite. And here we go. Oh, I think the machine's working. Maybe, or maybe it's very unhappy. Pretty sure that blue we're getting there is not from the RetroTink. Oh, look at that. All right, so I wonder if this is purple and it's because of damage on this little board right here. That chip that's there, I bet you that's probably the video processing board. And that's exactly one of the symptoms. And I bet you it's going from RGB, and one of the chips there takes the RGB and converts it into composite video and optionally S video with that mod we were looking at. And we've lost one of the channels, the green channel, obviously. So that's why we're getting these purples and blues and reds. So, okay, well, that's something that's totally doable. But the machine, as mentioned, does kind of work here, which is super cool. So I turn that off. Let's plug in this cartridge here. I'm just very curious to see what this does and see if this thing kind of boots up. Ooh, yes, MSX. Okay, there it is. Obviously, it would look a lot better if we had the composite mod or hooked up through RGB, which I'm pretty sure this thing does have on here. But look at all this stuff. Sweet, there's Contra. I can barely read the text. If I switch this into a different mode, we should get higher resolution text at least. Which one is it? This one? Oh boy, no, not really. Okay, so this is the same chip that's being used here to encode the composite video as is used on the Sega Genesis and the Mega Drive. And it does these bars here, at least on the NTSC version. It just makes it very difficult to read. Looks like you can set it to 50 or 60 hertz. So I set it to 60 hertz, I guess. Space to start or enter. Starting. Okay, Konami, there it is. Obviously, if we switch this back to composite, we'll get color, although we'll be missing the green channel. Nice, nice. This is literally my first time ever running anything on the MSX2 in my entire life. And there it is, there's Contra. I don't have a joystick connected, so looks like I can actually move using the arrow keys. But how cool, how freaking cool is this? And I'm noticing here, look at the little color LED here, sort of pulsating and stuff on there. That's very, very cool. All right, well, I think for now, I'm just gonna shut this off. Peter, thank you so much for sending this in. This is really, really cool. I'm really quite excited to play around with this. Of course, I have a Mister, and on there I have the MSX cores, and it's filled with MSX games. But I don't know, I've never really looked into it, and there's something about having the actual hardware here that is just kind of alluring. And obviously we're gonna have to do a little bit of repair to get the video working properly, but the machine is running otherwise. And then the floppy drive, that could be the Gotek swap that we can do. So thank you very much, Sharon, Sharam, and Peter for getting this thing together and sending this in all the way from Canada for me to play around with. From Canada, imported via Japan, obviously. Because like, yeah, I said, like, I'm really excited to get this thing working. And yeah, I'll have to bust out the microscope and we'll have to start doing a little bit of trace repair on that video board there to get that video output fixed, and maybe do the S-Video mod actually, because I would kind of like that. Or at least figure out how to hook up, I'll make an RGB cable. That's probably the best thing to do as well. And that would allow me to use my little RGB modded Sony Trinitron TV or my Toshiba over there. I have a RGB to component adapter. It's a little board that converts from regular NTSC style RGB directly into the component video that TV has, and it looks perfect. I plug an Amiga onto there and it's great. So I'm sure that would work really well with this as well. So this mail call episode has been kind of exciting. We have two computers, the PC1 from Olivetti and then this MSX2 computer that are going to lead to additional content in the future on the main channel. And that kind of leads me to a whole bunch of other things I still need to get to that I've opened on this second channel here, like the East German KC, I think it's an 83 computer. It's right down here. I keep it in view just to remind me that I need to get back to that. So I think before I'll even get to these, I'll probably get to that computer because I really want to see that thing work. I have so much stuff to get to. I have so much content to make. I'll seemingly never run out of anything. And that's thanks to you, my viewers, and all the people who sent in so much awesome stuff to mail call episodes. It just makes it possible that I can fool around and play with all this old stuff all the time, and that is so darn exciting. So that's going to be it for this mail call episode. Thank you, Michelle, for sending in the Olivetti. Thank you, Peter, and everyone for sending in this machine. It's just so awesome. I can't wait to get to this stuff. And apologies for my voice being a bit off. I have this cold. It's just never ending. It's super frustrating. So I'm trying to get over it, but for now, you know, got to keep making the videos, right? If you like this video, thumbs up would be greatly appreciated. And definitely, if you haven't already hit that subscribe button, it means a lot to me if you do. That one thing there just takes a second to do. It makes my channels grow. There's a proportional relationship, seems to be, from the number of subscribers you have to like the exposure of your videos. Obviously, there's more at play than just that, but it does seem to make a big difference because I can kind of see the difference between the second channel and the main channel, even though the videos aren't exactly the same and all that stuff, and I get that. But yeah, it definitely seems like as you get more and more subscribers, it seems like more eyes are put on your videos, and YouTube sort of promotes them a little bit more in the algorithm, you know, on the browse pages and stuff like that. So that would be really great if you hit that subscribe button. Thanks to my supporters. Their names are on the side of the screen. YouTube memberships, Patreon, both are available. Links down below if you want either one of them. And you get early access videos, other stuff like that. And it makes it possible I do this full time. So a huge thanks to all of them for making it possible I do this full time. And that's going to be that. So stay healthy, stay safe, and I'll see you next time. Bye.